A data-driven discussion on interracial marriage, affluence, and intra-community dynamics among African Americans. One of the most common claims in public conversations about race, marriage, and social mobility is that affluent or highly successful African American men tend to marry white women or women from other racial groups. This claim appears often in social media debates, celebrity commentary, and conversations about Black relationships. However, like many emotionally charged social claims, it requires careful examination. The goal should not be to attack interracial marriage, condemn personal choices, or blame one gender group. Instead, the issue should be approached as a demographic and sociological question. What does the data actually show? And what broader social forces may help explain the patterns? The first point to establish is that most married Black Americans are still married to other Black people. According to Pew Research Center's recent demographic profile of Black Americans, about 18% of married Black adults have a spouse who is not Black. This means that the majority of married Black adults are not in interracial marriages. However, there is a noticeable gender difference. Pew reports that about 22% of married Black men have a spouse who is not Black, compared with about 14% of married Black women. This does not prove that most affluent Black men marry outside their race, but it does show that Black men are more likely than Black women to be in interracial marriages. That distinction is important because public debates often exaggerate the pattern into a sweeping conclusion that is not supported by the broader data. The history of interracial marriage in the United States also matters. Interracial marriage has increased significantly over time, especially since the 1967 Supreme Court decision in Loving v. Virginia, which struck down laws banning interracial marriage. Pew Research Center found that among newly married Black adults, the share marrying someone of a different race or ethnicity increased from 5% in 1980 to 18% by 2015. This suggests that the increase in interracial marriage is not limited to Black Americans alone. It is part of a broader American trend shaped by changing social attitudes, increased racial integration in workplaces and colleges, urbanization, immigration, and generational differences in how people think about race and marriage. However, the discussion becomes more complex when education and gender are included. Pew's analysis shows that among Black newlyweds with a bachelor's degree, Black men are more likely than Black women to marry outside their race. Specifically, about 30% of college-educated Black male newlyweds were intermarried, compared to about 16% of Black male newlyweds without a bachelor's degree, compared with about 13% of college-educated Black female newlyweds. This is one of the strongest data points behind the public perception that successful or educated Black men are more likely to marry outside their race. But even here, it is important to interpret the numbers correctly. If 30% of college-educated Black male newlyweds are intermarried, that still means the majority are not. Therefore, the data supports a gender difference, but it does not support the claim that most successful Black men marry outside the race. Another problem with the public conversation is the loose use of the word affluent. In many discussions, people use affluent, successful, educated, wealthy, and high status as if they mean the same thing. Statistically, they do not. A person can be highly educated but not wealthy. A person can be wealthy without having a college degree. A celebrity can be highly visible but not representative of the general population. This is especially important because many people form their views from athletes, entertainers, actors, politicians, and social media personalities. But celebrity marriages are not a reliable sample of African American marriage patterns. Celebrities are visible precisely because they are unusual. Their choices should not be treated as proof of what most Black men or most affluent Black men do. A more serious analysis must also look at intra-community dynamics within Black America. The bigger demographic issue may not simply be interracial marriage, but marriage rates overall. Pew Research Center reported that Black adults are more likely than non-Black adults to have never married. In its 2026 profile, Pew noted that 48% of Black adults had never been married, compared with 29% of non-Black adults. Black men were somewhat more likely than Black women to be married, while Black women were more likely to be divorced, separated, or widowed. Similarly, Census Bureau data has shown that the share of Black adults who have never married has increased substantially over time. This broader context matters because the debate over interracial marriage is occurring inside a larger conversation about delayed marriage, lower marriage rates, economic instability, and changing family structures. For Black women, the marriage market issue is especially significant. Black women have made major gains in education. Pew reported that in 2024, 30.7% of Black women ages 25 and older had at least a bachelor's degree, compared with 24.3% of Black men. This educational advancement is a major achievement, but it also affects relationship dynamics. Many people prefer partners with similar levels of education, income, and professional stability. If there are more college-educated Black women than college-educated Black men, then the pool of similarly educated Black male partners becomes smaller. This does not mean that Black women cannot or should not marry across educational or racial lines. Rather, it means that demographic imbalance can affect dating and marriage outcomes. This is where the issue becomes less about individual blame and more about structure. Some commentators reduce the topic to personal accusations, saying that Black men leave Black women once they become successful, or that Black women are too selective. But the data points to a more complicated reality. Marriage patterns are influenced by employment, income, education, incarceration, mortality, geography, neighborhood segregation, religious communities, professional networks, and social expectations. For example, if Black men are disproportionately affected by incarceration, early mortality, unemployment, or underemployment, that affects the number of available partners in the marriage market. If Black women are achieving higher levels of education at a faster rate than Black men, that also changes the dynamics of partner selection. There is also a gendered pattern in interracial marriage. Black men are more likely than Black women to marry outside the race, and this has consequences for perception. Even if the actual percentage is not a majority, the pattern may feel more visible because it intersects with concerns about racial loyalty, representation, colorism, beauty standards, and historical experiences of Black women being devalued. For some Black women, the issue is not merely that some Black men marry outside the race. The deeper concern is whether successful Black men publicly affirm Black women, whether Black women are treated as desirable, and whether social mobility among Black men sometimes comes with distance from Black communities. These concerns may not always be measurable in a simple marriage statistic, but they are part of the emotional and cultural context surrounding the debate. At the same time, it is important to be fair to interracial couples. Interracial marriage should not automatically be interpreted as rejection of one's race. People marry for many reasons: love, shared values, compatibility, proximity, education, religion, workplace exposure, family background, and life experience. A Black man marrying a white woman does not necessarily mean he dislikes Black women. A Black woman marrying outside the race does not mean she rejects Black men. Personal relationships are complex, and a serious discussion should avoid reducing people's marriages to political statements. Therefore, the strongest conclusion is a balanced one. The data does not support the idea that most successful Black men marry outside their race. Most married Black men are married to Black women. However, the data does show that Black men, especially college-educated Black men, has more to share, are more likely than Black women to marry outside the race. That pattern is real and worth discussing, but it should not be exaggerated. It should be examined alongside broader issues, including Black marriage rates, educational imbalance, income inequality, incarceration, employment, geography, and changing social norms around interracial relationships. In the end, the issue is not simply whether affluent African American men marry outside the race. The deeper question is how race, class, gender, education, and opportunity shape marriage choices in America. Interracial marriage is one part of that story. Intra-community marriage dynamics are another. A responsible discussion should recognize both the freedom of individuals to marry whom they love and the broader structural realities that shape who meets whom, who is considered marriageable, and who has access to stable family formation.